Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reaction to the Italian Grand Prix. It has been a fantastic day for motorsport today. F3 was incredible. The championship went down to the last corner of the last lap of the last race. In the Formula 2, there was another fantastic battle which saw Gabriel Bortoleto go from last to first. And I said in my F2 reactions video, can F1 live up to the hype of these first two races? And you know what? I think it did. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. If you haven't seen the F2 or F3 videos, make sure to go check those ones out after this one. But let's talk about F1. Before that though, like and subscribe, and a big shout out to our members, Dakota, The Joyous James, Robin Myers, and Cinnamon Strudel. If you want to become a member, click the link in the description. Let's talk about this bloody race then, hey? Because we have got Lando Norris on pole, Piastri alongside to complete the McLaren front row lockout. Championship leader Max Verstappen is down in 7th place. The Red Bull really struggling this weekend. As for the tyres, Verstappen, Perez, Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, Valtteri Bottas all starting on the hards. Everyone else on the mediums. As we get going, it is a good getaway from Lando Norris, but an even better getaway from George Russell, who pulls alongside Piastri. They're battling for P2, but Piastri then pulls out to try and go around the outside of Norris. This comes as a surprise to Russell, who hits on the brakes, locks up, and then has to go through the runoff section. Let's call it that. And Russell goes down and gets passed by both Ferraris, passed by Hamilton, and then Verstappen is right on the back of him there. So Russell, despite making a great start, losing quite a bit at the start of the race, and Norris would lose the lead going into the second chicane, going into turn 4. Piastri surprised him. I think Norris thought, I've made it through the first chicane, I'm safe. He was not safe, because Piastri comes in, he gets the position, and you can tell that Norris was a bit shocked by it because the car was a bit wobbling all over the place. This allowed Leclerc to then go down the inside as well and take P2. So Norris, again, from pole, does not lead at the end of lap 1. I'm not actually sure if he led I don't think he led a single lap of this race. Meanwhile, George Russell has got damage on his front wing. I don't know if it's because I don't think he hit Piastri. I think when he went through that runoff, you're dodging the polystyrene barriers, unless you're Tantapol into Puvazak in the Formula 2, of course. Yeah, and I think he clipped one, and I think that might be where it came from, but I could be wrong on that. Meanwhile, we get the first of many pit stops in this race. It was Nico Hülkenberg. So Nico had an interesting first few laps. He'd qualified in the top 10. I think he was 10th, doing very well. And then on the first lap, he was properly squeezed by Daniel Ricciardo, going out on the track into the gravel. As he came back on, his teammate got past him as well. He'd carried on from there despite losing a few positions. Then went for a really adventurous dive bomb on Yuki Tsunoda that just did not work at all. And he hit Tsunoda as well. Then he comes into the laps for hard tyres and a new front wing, and it was a very slow stop as well. I don't think the pit crew were truly prepared for the front wing change. That was on lap 6. A couple laps later, Yuki retires the car. You could tell he had side pod damage from the instant we saw the incident happened. So, yeah, Yuki has to retire the car. There's a 5-second penalty for Daniel Ricciardo for causing the collision with Hülkenberg. Then Hülkenberg himself gets a 10-second penalty for causing the collision with Perez. Meanwhile, George Russell still on the track, still with a broken front wing. He gets passed by Sergio Perez for P7. And then Pierre Gasly pits for lap 11. Russell pits the next lap for a front wing and new hard tyres, as does Ricciardo, and Alonso is one lap later. Lando Norris is stuck behind Leclerc, and McLaren decide the best way to get past him is to try and undercut. So they pit on lap 15. And I think this is when the plan started to kind of dissolve. Because all the story leading into the race was that this was a one-stop for everyone. But people pitting from mediums on like lap 12, lap 15, there's no way they're going to make it to the end on the hards. So Norris kind of locked into a two-stop from this point onwards. Magnussen also pits, as does Hamilton and Leclerc. Leclerc pitting on lap 16 as a response to Lando Norris. But Norris does get ahead through the one lap earlier pit stop. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri is leading the race. He pits on lap 16 for hards. And Franco Colapinto, his first F1 race and his first F1 pit stop on lap 17 for hard tyres. His teammate Albon is in the next lap. Then Ricciardo's day goes from bad to worse as he gets a 10-second penalty for not serving his penalty correctly. And we see a replay of this. And one of his mechanics, when he came in to serve the stop, just touched the front wing as it came in, just as a natural response, then realised he wasn't supposed to touch the front wing, and you can see he's just beating himself up. Then they wait the 5 seconds, then they do it, but it's pointless at that time because they've already touched the car. So he had a 10-second time penalty that I think was applied at the end of the race. So a bad weekend for Ricciardo. Sainz pits on lap 20 for hards. Max Verstappen pits on lap 23 for hards. He was already on the hards, so Max Verstappen secured into a two-stop as well, and it was a bad stop. 6.2 seconds. I mean, from Red Bull, who are famously fantastic at pit stops, a 6.2 second stop is not what you want. And, it's always Monza. It's always Monza when Verstappen gets a bad pit stop. You go back to 2021 when he was leading quite comfortably and doing okay. Oh no, he wasn't leading, was he? He was like third, I think, second or third. Ricciardo was leading, but he was in a good position, had the awful pit stop, came out right next to Hamilton, and that led to the crash. Here we see a bad pit stop, but no crash. We were okay. We avoided the crash, but a bad weekend for Red Bull gets a little bit worse there. Perez pits the lap later on lap 24 for hard tyres, and then we see that Magnussen and Gasly have been getting into it as well. A crash there, I think it was into the second chicane, turn 4-5, where Magnussen crashed into Gasly. He was given a 10-second time penalty, but bigger picture here, everybody, it has just been confirmed now that Kevin Magnussen will also receive 2 penalty points, which means that in the space of 12 months, he has received 12 penalty points, which means Kevin Magnussen will receive a race ban and will not participate in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, which probably means we are getting Ollie Behrman's Haas debut about 6 months earlier than we thought we would. So that is something to look forward to in 2 weeks' time. It probably also means that Ollie Behrman will not be taking part in Formula 2 in 2 weeks' time. But still, all good stuff, because fans of F2 who watched last year will know Ollie Behrman did pretty well in Baku last year. He won both the sprint and the feature race. So that could be an interesting one to watch, a very exciting one there. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri, he's out ahead of this race, and he's taking fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. And at this point in the race, it does seem like it's all in McLaren's hands. They have the fastest car, they have 2 fast drivers. The question is, which McLaren driver is going to win the Italian Grand Prix? The answer, none of them. Anyway, Russell is now behind Perez. He gets close to Perez, goes for the overtake, can't make it, cuts the chicane, gives the place back, but then challenges Perez into turn 4. And Perez did complain about this, and I think he has a right to complain about it as well. So I remember many years ago, was it like 2008, 2009 in Belgium, there was a thing with Hamilton and Raikkonen, that Hamilton gained a position by cutting a corner, then gave the position right back to Raikkonen, then took the position right back again into the corner. And I think he got a penalty for that, because you're not supposed to do that. I think here it's a similar thing, because Russell went for the move, didn't make the move, cut the chicane, but then he kind of did gain time through cutting the chicane to attack Perez again. If he had gained that position into turn 4, I think we could have seen a penalty come the way of Russell. But, at the end of the day, he didn't gain the position. Maybe you could say, he put Perez a bit offline or whatever, but no reason for a penalty there, but borderline, I think. Anyway, Leclerc is now on the back of Norris, lap 32. And Norris pits again on lap 33. Another slow stop. Not as bad as the Red Bull, but a 3.3 second stop for Norris. Russell pits on lap 34, and here's a slow one as well, a 4.2. So a few slow stops going here, but it was very hot, so it could be that. But this stop here for Norris could be seen as the thing that cost him the race, because Leclerc does not pit again, and it slowly becomes more and more obvious to those in the stands and us watching at home. Ferrari are going for a one stop whilst McLaren are going for the two. Now, of course, Norris pitted one lap earlier than Leclerc did on the first stop, so in realistic terms, could Norris have done it? He said in the interview afterwards, no. The McLaren was eating its tyres a little bit too much. But this was the moment that Norris lost contention for the race win by doing that pit stop there. Bottas finally stopped, by the way. He was out until lap 35 on the hard tyres. He stops for the mediums. Perez pits for the mediums, laps 36, comes out ahead of George Russell, which was important for him at that time. Alonso pits on lap 36. Hamilton pits on lap 38. And then on lap 38 as well, Russell does finally get past Sergio Perez for P8. A long-term battle there between Perez and Russell. Oscar Piastri now pits on lap 39, and the interesting thing here was he going to come out in front of Lando Norris? Now, as I said, Lando's stop was a little bit slower than usual, but even more important, especially if your name is Oscar Piastri, is that the car in front of Lando Norris at this point was one Max Verstappen, and Max was told over the radio, feel free to race Norris if you want, defend your position. And he did, because Max was desperately trying to defend his position, not too hard, but definitely making it more difficult for Norris than he had to. Eventually, Norris does get past on lap 41, so it took him a couple laps to do it, but that made all the difference, because when Piastri came out of the pit stop, there was about 1.8 seconds between Piastri and Norris. By the time Norris gets past Verstappen, that gap is now 4.2 seconds. So that huge buffer there that Verstappen gave to Piastri and also slowed Norris down a little bit from there, try and make sure he doesn't get as many points as possible. So even when Verstappen isn't in the fight for the lead, he's still contributing to the fight for the lead with his defensive move there. Verstappen does pit on lap 42. Basically, as soon as Norris got past him, he pits for those medium tyres. And from there, he just kind of has a little race of his own. At one point, he had the fastest lap, but that went away. He tried to get on Hamilton, but couldn't do it in the end. Now, this is when it really becomes obvious. There's about 10 laps to go, and everyone's fully aware now. The Ferraris are on a 1, the McLarens are on a 2. And this is it now, to the end. Obviously, the McLarens have more pace, but the Ferraris have that track position, and they have that time gap. Is there enough time left in the race? On lap 45, Piastri is on the back of Carlos Sainz. A lap later, he's past him and starting to hunt down Charles Leclerc. A couple laps after that, Norris is on the back of Sainz. And on lap 48, Norris gets past Sainz. Now, both McLarens heading towards Charles Leclerc, but can they do it? No, they cannot. We crossed the line. Charles Leclerc wins the Italian Grand Prix for Ferrari. Fantastic stuff. The most passionate F1 fans see their team take the win. Absolutely incredible stuff. To hear them sing the national anthem and hear them cheer lap after lap after lap as it started to look like Leclerc was going to win. Fantastic stuff. Oscar Piastri in P2. A fantastic drive from him, but in the end, they were outdone on the strategy by Ferrari, of all teams. Lando Norris had to settle for P3. Carlos Sainz in 4th. Lewis Hamilton is 5th. Max Verstappen only 6th place. George Russell in 7th. Sergio Perez in 8th. It is 9th for Albon. 10th for Magnussen after that penalty. Alonso was in 11th. I think they were separated by like a 10th or something, so very close between Alonso and Magnussen as to who was going to get that point. A fantastic debut for Franco Colapinto, and I think this might have been a bit overlooked because there's much bigger stories going on in terms of the Ferrari win and Piastri beating Lando and what this whole means for the championship and all that kind of stuff, but special moment to say Franco Colapinto finishing 12th a fantastic debut for him. You know, he didn't have the best qualifying. He messed up his second lap going through the gravel, but I think he made up for it here with a P12. Even more so when you think, if you look at Logan Sargent's results this year, Sargent's best finish was 11th, and I think his second best finish was a 13th or a 14th place. So a 12th place in the second Williams is the second Williams' second best finish all year. So very good job from Franco Colapinto. Definitely deserves a bit of celebration there. Daniel Ricciardo had a horrible weekend, but still manages to finish in 13th place. If not for those penalties, he possibly could have been in contention for the points there. Ocon is 14th with Gasly 15th. Bottas, a very respectable 16th place. Very good from Bottas. Hulkenberg in 17th. Zhou is 18th. And Lance Stroll is 19th. Stroll was around about like 15th or 16th until like 2 laps to go. And they just pit him for the softs. And I guess his tyres were just done. He didn't set the fastest lap or anything, but he got 19th place. Then only one DNF, Yuki Tsunoda. But I think we've had a few races in a row now of no DNF, so it was good to see someone DNF at least. Unfortunately, it had to be Yuki Tsunoda. But there you go. That is the Italian Grand Prix, a fantastic race all in all, where strategy played out in front of our very eyes. Whilst we were watching the McLarens battling to see who would win, the Ferrari was the one who snuck in and got the victory. Fantastic stuff all around. We're back tomorrow for all things driver ratings. We'll give every driver a score between 1 and 10. Next week, there is no F1, but there will be a video here on the channel on Friday, and if there's any big news in the week, I'll either be here to do a breaking news video, or we'll talk about it on Saturday in the weekly news roundup video. I'm not sure what the Friday video is going to be, but I'll figure it out between now and then. I'm sure it'll be an all-time classic. And then, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be back here again to talk all things Baku, Formula 1 and Formula 2. I don't think the Formula 3 is there. I think it's just the two of them. Yeah, Formula 3 is done now, isn't it? So, yeah, just Formula 1 and Formula 2. And we will see Ollie Behrman's Haas debut, it seems like. So that is one to look out for. I will see you then. Until then, though, have a good one. Goodbye.